Hello, my name is Dylan Harper, and this is our Week 8 presentation over Title IX, and to be more specific, using a high school or a college to determine and pinpoint a portion of the test. For this assignment, I really utilized Jason Vitoni, the athletic director of William Woods University. He basically really helped me in finding out the Title IX, not only just the rules, but really understanding how William Woods complies and where they struggle. So just to start, we're going to go over like Title IX and basically the three-pronged test, and you're looking at participation, scholarship, and treatments. So the first one would be participation. And what I'm going to do is, I know we were supposed to pick one portion and go over that about the school of your choice, but being that Vitoni helped me with so many so many facts about Title IX and how William Woods does with Title IX, I decided to just kind of utilize it and really give a full presentation on how William Woods does with the three prongs. So the first one is participation. And like I said, Title IX, before we start, must meet one of the three parts in participation. That's the first thing, is participation basically on undergrads, substantially proportionate to enrollment. 2 is the history of continuing practice of program expansion. And then also the third one is institution is fully and effectively accommodating the interests and abilities of the underrepresented sex. So basically, under Title IX rules, you have to meet one of those three. And so that being said, in the first one, substantially proportionate to enrollment, William Woods really struggles with this one because, with that being said, it means that your athletic department must be proportionate in male and female as the enrollment. The biggest thing that makes this a struggle for William Woods is because it used to be an all-ladies school, and down the road, Westminster used to be an all-men's school. So when you look at it, once they went co-ed, William Woods has always struggled with getting men on campus. It's predominantly a campus that is driven by women. You don't see a lot of men in the equestrian department that is predominantly dominated by women. And we have a very good ASL program, which you see a lot of women interpreters. And just being so, with all those things kind of going into mind, we still do get men enrollment because we have men athletics, and you do see men in ASL, obviously, and in equestrian. That's just not as big as what people would expect. So when you look at it, roughly the enrollment is 65% female and 35% male. Looking back at that, just kind of holds true to what we were talking about, how it used to be an all-ladies school, being, common majors that are dominated by women. So when you look at our athletics, roughly 47% are female and 53% are men. With that being said, basically means that our athletes are basically men, because the only way we get men to William Woods University is through athletics. So we definitely don't meet that first standard. Going into the second one, history of continuing practice of program expansion for the underrepresented sex. So recently, in the last 5-10 years, the only sports that have been added are men's tennis and women's tennis. And we brought men's basketball in 2007. Men's and women's tennis were brought to you in 2015. But when you look at it, that is 2 men's sports to 1 women's sports. And when you're utilizing that underrepresented sex, we don't meet that standard because obviously we have 2 men's sports over 1 lady sport. So we don't meet the first and second standard. So basically what it's saying is we have to meet the third one, and this is where William Woods excels. So the third one is the institution is fully and effectively accommodating the interests and abilities of the underrepresented sex. First thing they do is they do a survey, open form, and questionnaires to determine, every year, 1, the interest to support an intercollegiate team. So basically, being a student and now a grad assistant, I've been through all these surveys. They do them every year. They ask all types of questions on what type of sports would you like to see brought to William Woods. If we had this team, would you support it? Would you play? Would you, little things like that. So the first thing is that interest to support an intercollegiate team. They find the interest of what sports draw attention, and then they try and go from there. 2, once they have that interest, does William Woods have the ability to sustain an intercollegiate team, whether it's budgeting, whether it's recruiting, whether it's having enough men or women to accommodate that sport, year after year after year. And that third one is a reasonable expectation of competition for the team. I'm looking at it as a sense of, are there enough teams in our conference to play each other? Would we have to go out of the state to play, this expected team or sport? So those are big things they do. That is the big one they meet. They really, really strive hardcore on the third one because they know for a fact that the first two they just can't meet. It's just not physically possible for anyone to meet the first two. So they have to understand that the third one they have to abide by, and they do a very good job. When you look at Title IX as a whole, another thing that they look at is scholarship. And what it says is that men and women must have equitable aid in relation to participation. Any disparity in excess of 1% raises an issue of discrimination. Currently, our percentages are men is at 51% aid and 53% participation, whereas women is 49% aid, need 47% participation. So right there, you have that a little bit excess, but it's still good either way. And the third one is treatment and benefits. And they look at a lot of criteria, specifically on a space of 11 criteria. And I'm just kind of going to go through them, and they just kind of look at that as Title IX and just kind of compare how your school does as in correlation of treatment and the benefits that a student gets. So the first one is locker rooms, practice, and competitive facilities. This one is most likely not met just because the university owns the baseball field but not the softball field. They have an agreement with the city of Fulton, so therefore we don't own the softball field, but we do own the baseball field. And two women's sports share one locker room. One male sport has its own. So looking back at that, so basically we have locker rooms only for men's and women's basketball. And then when they say the two women's sports, volleyball shares the women's basketball locker room, and the men's basketball gets their own locker room. So that's where they say when it comes to locker rooms, practices, and competitive facilities, we don't really meet that one because when it comes to locker rooms and facilities, we are kind of down on that. A couple more locker rooms would be very, very beneficial, but they just haven't gotten that into the budget yet. That second standard is the equipment and supplies. This one is met just because we budget for like sports are similar. No one sport gets any discrepancies either way as opposed to the budget. That is based off of, the budget is purely based off of how many games you play and how many players you have on the team. Obviously, the less players, probably not as high the budget needs to be because you're not buying for 42 people like a baseball team instead of, soccer who has 17 players. So they don't discriminate or give more money to one team as opposed to the other. They basically proportion it to the traveling you do and how big of a roster that you have. The scheduling of games and practice times, definitely met. They give no restrictions either way to one sex over the other. Practice schedules are just a rotating schedule because we don't have a lot of facilities, so a couple teams do have to correlate schedules, and it is a revolving door. If we have a late practice as a baseball team one week, then we flip-flop, and softball will take the late practice the next week. I'm just kind of back and forth, and that's pretty much how it goes. Publicity, definitely most likely met. There's no difference in how the information is sent to the media outlets or social media. The only difference on that is how the outlets choose to report. That basically just means that as a school, we are not going to discriminate on, we're only going to post good things that men do. That's definitely not the case. We will post, everything and anything that we can that will benefit William Wood's athletic program and anything that shows a higher involvement with our players. That fifth one is coaching. Definitely met because obviously every sport has a full-time head coach, and they do have one full-time assistant for male sports and one full-time assistant for a combined sport. Grad assistants are equal across the board, and pay for men's versus women as opposed to sports for head coaches is very close, and women are actually paid more as a head coach here on campus. According to Jason Mattoni, which he's going to know the exact truth, but he's not going to give you the numbers, obviously. The sixth one is travel and daily allowance. Modes of transportation, our budget are similar. So basically what we have is we have a deal with a bus company out of Columbia, and every team just sends in their schedule to, it's called Doc and Norm, and basically every team, as long as they're not going to Fayette or Columbia to play a game, they will always have a charter bus no matter what. Depending on how many players are on your squad determines which kind of bus you get. They do have a bigger bus for the baseball team, and sometimes depending on the coaches, they will combine men's and women's basketball if they play a doubleheader against somebody. Sometimes you will see men will play and then the women will play, and they will ride the same bus together. The next one is academic tutoring. No restrictions given either way. Tutoring goes hand in hand with either men or women. It all comes down to who needs it and who wants it. Provision of medical training facilities and services, definitely met. No restrictions given either way. We have a full-time training staff full of 2 athletic trainers, a doctor, and 2 grad assistants. So no fluctuation in discrimination either way. All athletes are welcome. All athletes are definitely treated and taken into great care once they hit the athletic training facility. Provision of housing and dining facilities and services. Dining hall is open to anyone and everyone. They will accommodate to gluten-free, vegetarian, trying to hit a diet. I mean, they will definitely help no matter what it is, male, female. Housing, no restrictions. The only restriction that we definitely do is freshman dorms. 1 level's men, 1 level's women. 1 level's men. They don't do co-ed in the same hall, but they do co-ed in the building itself. There's no restrictions given either way. The only thing they have is basically each level is 1 gender. That's the only basically restriction there. Just saves the school from any sexual harassment causes or anything like that. So recruitment of student athletes. All teams have the same budget. It's basically it's based off of what they typically use per year. No restrictions given to men or women. Just like I said, some teams require to recruit more. Baseball is going to go out and recruit 15 to 20 guys a year. Women's soccer is only going to recruit maybe 4 to 8, 10 on the high end if they need. So their budgets are just basically based off of what they typically use and how many players they typically have to go out, which means baseball's going to take a couple more recruiting trips than women's soccer or men's soccer. And that last one is support services. There's no restrictions of administrative, secretarial, or clerical assistance given to any one sex or the other. Everyone is here to support everybody, and no discriminations either way. So looking back at it, those main 3 prongs for Title IX and the participation, history of continuing practice, and fully and effectively accommodating the interest. William Woods does not meet the proportion of enrollment. They do not meet the history of continuing practice, but according to Title IX, you only have to meet one of the 3. They do meet the 3rd one of effectively and fully accommodating the interests and abilities of the underrepresented sex. And I do know that full hand. I know that is true because I've been through all of the surveys and the forms and the questionnaires every year for the past 6 years that I've been here. This is my 7th year. Being an undergrad and being a student athlete for 5 years, I definitely know that they do take that 3rd prong very seriously. There's several surveys that go out, questionnaires, and they highly recommend that you fill them out to the best of your ability. Second thing, that scholarship and then treatments and benefits, those are just Title IX things that they look at, that they try and they want you to meet. But the biggest thing, that first one is basically participation. That is the main section that you have to meet. And like I said, it has that 3-prong test for participation where you have to meet one of the 3, and William Woods does that. Thank you for your time. It's been a great 8 weeks. I wish the best to everyone in their endeavors later down the road, all the coaches and administrative employees. Good luck with the rest of your futures, and I look forward to hearing good things about you. Thank you.